I'm Patricia Richardson, and you're listening to You Might Know Her From with Damien and Ann.
And we're back. Always wanted to do something like that, like I was a radio show host. Hi, folks. Welcome back to You Might Know Her From
with Damien and Ann.
It's true. It's us. It's those two queerdos, Damien and Ann. I'm Damien.
I'm Ann. I was like very into radio jockeys, disc jockeys. I was very into that movie Straight Talk with Dolly Parton, where she was like a radio jockey. Is that the word?
Disc jockey, yeah, disc jockey, right?
That's jockey.
What I was always into them, like in the context of a TV series. So like in WKRP in Cincinnati, when like Lonnie Anderson, I was into that version of what. Like I was not into like Preston in the Morning on Y100 or something.
Is Frasier a disc jockey? No, he's like a psychologist who has a radio show.
Yeah, but to me, that scratches the same itch because he's like in the booth and like Perry Gilpin's his like producer. Is it Perry Gilpin or is it?
Is she Roz? I've never seen an episode of Frasier in my entire life.
Really? Oh my gosh!
Not a single
Cindy
episode.
will be so disappointed.
It's so true.
Wait, so
it's a frame of reference for everything.
Perry Gilpin is Roz or no? Is Perry Gilpin the one who's in Twister? No, that's Jamie Gertz. I get them confused.
That's Jamie Gertz.
I get them confused sometimes.
It's the G's.
Yeah.
Who's the other person? Oh, Jane Leeves. Jane Leeves is the British one.
Jane Leeves, that is the person I saw on Broadway playing the role of Sally Bowles in the 98 revival of Cabaret.
And I, of course, saw Molly Ringwald twice, and I was sad about it.
I remember being... Okay, I'm going to say this.
Say it. Put it on the record. I dare you.
I remember I was in high school. I saw it with my parents, I believe. And it was the first time I was thinking, like, oh, you cannot be good and be on
Well, that's the beauty of Sally Bowles. Hannah and I were just talking about this as we were listening to the cast recording. Like, oh, this is a show where no one has to be able to sing that well, like legitimately. Well, yeah, except for the Nazi who sings "Tomorrow Belongs to Me." Everybody else can sort of sing their way through the show. It's great.
As my voice teacher in high school told me, because I'm not a person who can sing but wanted to be doing the musicals, and he was like cutthroat, you know? So it's like he was like expensive and good, and like I couldn't sing. And he was like, they're always going to cast somebody who can sing to play a role that can't sing. It's like casting Rachel Lee Cook as the ugly person and like put glasses on her. It's like they're going to cast a Christine in a chorus line who can actually sing. And I was like, point taken, you know, I still can't sing, but I do agree that like many shows, but Cabaret being for sure one of them, is like a show that can get around that. And like lots of Sondheim, it's like if you can act the song, then it's like no one's mad, you know?
Well, I think they hired some Sally Bowles that couldn't do either, but that's the beauty of stunt casting on Broadway. Pam Anderson is going to be Roxy Hart. Okay. We're so excited. We are excited about this. We haven't even talked about it on the record. Holy cow.
Okay, we need to talk about Pam Anderson as Roxy Hart, because here's the thing. I don't know if we've talked about this, probably not, but I'm going to do it now. We bought tickets for Chicago in August. There was a Broadway underground rumor that Chicago was coming back bigger and better than ever. They were rebranding in light of the social, racial reckoning that had happened in the country. We were coming out of lockdown. They wanted to blow it out. It's the longest running Broadway musical, right? I think so.
I think that's right currently, yeah.
So they are coming back, and
not longer than Phantom, the longest running Broadway revival, I think.
Okay, so they're coming back. They're going to blow it out. The contracts are nearly signed. Maybe they were signed. It was going to be Ariana DeBose, who was slated to be in West Side Story and was getting a lot of buzz before it was released, and Jane Krakowski, Tony winner, huge star.
But Swerve, they weren't going to be playing the roles that you would think they would be, which is that Jane I assumed would be Roxy, but she was going to be Velma, and Ariana DeBose was going to be Roxy, which is just sort of shocking, all things considered, since usually Velma is the heavier dancing role, and like Roxy is usually played older in this revival.
Totally. And also what I think is cool about it is that because there's a lot of stunt casting, speaking of stunt casting, there's so much stunt casting in Chicago over the years that a lot of times they cast like a big celebrity as Roxy and they like trim the dancing down severely. But because Ariana DeBose is also a dancer, it's kind of cool that it was like, we're going to get a Velma who's a Tony winner, who's like a TV star, and who can dance, who's like a little older than they've been skewing Velma. And then we're going to get Roxy, who can also dance. And I was so excited. So we bought tickets, a group of us. We were very excited. And then, of course, it was announced that the cast was going to be like, the woman from the On Your Feet musical and Bianca Marroquin, who's a very good Roxy, but Anne and I have seen her twice already, so I don't need to see her again. So I say all of this to say that we got a refund, and now we need to put we need to put those funds back on the boards for Pam.
For Pammy. I love her so much, and I really root for her. I think it's great casting. Look, the Weislers have been doing this for 20 plus years. Good for them. I think they got it right. Also, it's one of my great regrets. I've seen that show maybe 8 times over the years. It is one of my great regrets that I did not see Miss Melanie Griffith in the role of Roxy Hart, because I think it was Ben Brantley or Frank Rich, I don't remember who was writing, but said that like she was such perfect casting for the show because she has that natural sort of like movie star ditzy charisma, but like she's smart. So there's something happening that the audience is already responding to when she walks into the role. And of course, there's that great supercut that Damien always plays at every clip night that's like 14 different Roxys doing the Roxy monologue, and it's just like boom, 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 one after the other. And the footage of Melanie Griffith does make me think that I missed something great. I did see her husband across the street doing 9 while she was doing it, and it was like, it was a dumb regret. It was a dumb regret. I got to see her do both Reach for the Gun at that Broadway Under the Stars thing, and it was super bizarre. It was bizarre.
I'm going to say that clip, Aurora Borealis, God bless you.
Aurora Spider-Woman. The greatest account on YouTube. The Broadway hits just keep coming. I think she has like a secret stash that she'll just like release one incredible clip a month.
Yeah, and then and then I think things get taken down, but then they'll come back up. Like Starlight Express showed up because, I look for it and then it was down, but now it's back up. So God bless Aurora Spider-Woman. But, that clip shows like 6 different Roxys, and I think most of them are good, and I think you'd be surprised. Like Sandy Duncan, no surprise, she's excellent.
Brilliant.
Charlotte Dubois in the clip, I can't remember, but excellent, of course. But
Ruthie
then like
Henshaw.
Yes, great. But like Melanie Griffith and Lisa Rinna, both good actors. Like and I think that, it's interesting, they both are sort of like notorious in a way, or, had some sort of infamy around their fame. So I think it makes sense, and I think that's what Pammy has going for her, is that she had a level of fame that was infamy,
Totally. I'm really excited for her. I think it's a great move. And I feel like I think a large percentage of Broadway is very ready to embrace Pam Anderson, especially since that unauthorized TV show came out and she was like, I did not sanction this about my life. This was also a super traumatic time in my life. And a lot of money was made, none of which I saw, around like my sex tape that was like a private thing between me and my husband. I feel sad for her. So I'm excited to welcome her back. And I have to say that thinking about those Roxy clips plays in really particularly to this week's episode, because we got into something that felt so personal with this week's guest, and that is, of course, multiple actresses playing the role of Madame Mama Rose in Gypsy. And I didn't think that we would be able to get to such a personal moment with an actress on this show, but I felt like we just tapped into it with this week's episode with the great Patricia Richardson.
Yeah, so folks, just to offer you a little context, if you don't know what we mean when we say clips and clip nights and, and things like that. And
what's context? Who needs it?
we call clipping or clip nights. That's when you watch clips, and a lot of times for us, those they're like videos, often on YouTube, but they're usually videos of Broadway shows. Maybe they're from the Tonys, maybe they're from the Rosie O'Donnell show, maybe it's bootlegs that someone took, maybe it's a commercial that Kim Cattrall did in Tokyo for Mario Kart where she says Mario. Maybe it's Kim Cattrall with a upright bass. There's lots of different types of clips, and they can be they run the gamut. For me, I want them the most as specific as possible. So
correct.
So that is what we get into a little bit with Patricia Richardson, which you're going to hear. We had just a total ball with Patricia. We really got to dig into a really exciting reveal about her early career that opens the door for so much, but then of course got to talk to her about her years-long tenure on network TV as what many have said was the greatest sitcom mom of all time. That was Jill Taylor on Home Improvement. And we just had such a great time with Patricia Richardson. And I want you to know that her hair is beautifully white nowadays. So if you haven't seen what Patricia Richardson's hair is currently looking like, it is looking beautiful.
Exquisite. You might know her from Home Improvement,
The West Wing,
Strong Medicine,
Ulee's Gold,
Cubby,
and The Parent Trap 3.
Holy Moses, this is a big day for us, and I can't tell you that our guest has really been bearing with us today. So we are here with actress and Emmy nominee Patricia Richardson. Patricia, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
Well, we were like beyond excited when we started doing our research on you. And obviously we know so much about your career, but when
you did research. I'm really impressed.
What do you think this is? What do you think this is?
Honey, I've done a lot of this kind of stuff over the years. there are times when people are like, who are you? Oh yeah, I'm interviewing you.
Okay. Well, we're going to please buckle up because we're diving back to your Broadway debut as a Hollywood blonde and understudy for the Gypsy Rose lead role in the 1974 Broadway revival of Gypsy starring Angela Lansbury. Wow. Patricia, what can you tell us that you learned from that famed production? And what was it like to be directed by Arthur Laurents, the man who wrote the book for the musical and also was sort of a known tyrant?
You know, he was never a tyrant with me. I heard later from people that he could be that way. I think when we were rehearsing in Toronto, I might have seen it once. But I got my equity card from him. I walked into him. I had not sent all my stuff up to New York yet, so I didn't have my music. I didn't have pictures. I didn't have anything. But I just saw him backstage one day that they were going to allow non-equity people to come to this audition for Hollywood Blondes and the understudies in Gypsy. And I knew Gypsy pretty well because I almost got it. Another production somewhere else. And I knew the show. I knew the scene that she does at the end. I mean, and I'm not a great singer. I could belt. But Little M was always a real challenge. And, so I go in and I'm just thinking, I didn't even get there until like 2:00 in the afternoon because I was only going to that place to kind of listen to other girls talking, see how people dressed, because I didn't have my music. I was like, I can't audition for this. I'm not ready. So I'm just watching and listening to people. And it was at Act 48 Studios, and they had big windows, and you could see the people auditioning through these windows, and you could hear them, which was, I mean, kind of horrible for the people, But I'm watching this, and I'm watching all these people, and I'm like, I don't want to say this sounds horrible, but I was like, there's a lot of people that are very good here. Maybe I should try to do something. Just sing. I mean, I know the part. If I could just figure out something, I'll just sing. But then I don't have the music. And so I'm like going through this whole thing and thinking, no, I can't do this. I can't do this. And then at the end, they finished all the equity people and they came out and said, okay, all the non-equity people come and just get in a line. And I was like, oh, what the hell? So I was like the last person in this long line near the door because the whole time I was thinking, I don't have music and everything, and maybe I just don't want to do this, and so I'll just stand by the door in case it seems like a bad idea, and then I can escape. So I'm standing by the door, and then I noticed that Arthur Laurents and this other guy who turned out to be the choreographer, who was the father of the girl I understudied, and was a horrible bastard to me through the entire
Robert
audition.
Tucker. This is Robert Tucker.
Yes. Oh my God, he was so nasty to me, but it actually helped me because every time he said something nasty to me, because I lied about dancing. Here's why I lied about dancing. First of all, I sat in this group with, they said, okay, you stay. And it was all these tall brunettes, short blondes, because they needed an understudy for Dainty June too. So, or this little group of 30 or 40 people sitting on the floor. And I'm still like eyeing another door that I can get out of. And I'm like, this is such a bad idea. I got to get out of here. This is really a bad idea. And I'm like the second person they called to get up here because they had been looking at me and pointing at me. And I didn't know I looked like her. I had no idea. So when they were pointing at me, I was like, who are they looking at? Anyway, so of course, I'm like the second person. The first person was another woman they knew that was reading for Louise. And so they call me up and I'm like, oh, shit, I can't get out the door now. So I go up and they say, okay, do you have a song? And I'm like, I just moved here and my music isn't here yet. And I don't have any music, but I thought maybe, and then all of these girls like sitting over there went, you can use my music. I've got a whole book of music. It was so sweet.
That's generous.
Yeah.
Really sweet. And I was really shocked because I thought, oh, competitive New York. Couldn't have been nicer. But I have a range of about 4 notes. So I can't just sing anybody else's music. I'm like, so I just kind of looked at the piano and said, can you play Honey Bun? And he went, yeah, I could do that. I went, okay. And what key? And I went, I don't know. I'm not a singer. I had just gotten a BFA in acting from SMU, not singing. So I'm like, my doll is as dainty as a sparrow. I just get that. He went, okay, that key. Whatever it was. Whatever it was. So I sang that and I can belt. So I belted the shit out of that. And Arthur was so happy. Arthur was just grinning at me. He was so nice. And he was like, okay, go over there and sit down. And I'm like, for what? the dance audition. I'm like, oh, can you dance? I've been there for like a month, and we were really at SMU. We had all this thorough training, and we had period size of dance, and we had movement. I went to a whole movement workshop. So, and I knew that this part didn't dance much. All she has to really do is a stripper walk and a little bit of dancing. And they said, all my friends that were still there, they were like, whatever they ask you, say yes. You can learn how to do it. So I just kind of, yeah. I totally lied, and I am not a liar. I'm a very bad liar. So then I have to go over here, which is farther from the door. So if I'm going to sneak out now, I'd have to sneak out behind the table of them or in front of them. And so I'm sitting there the whole time while they go through all the other people to do the dance audition. I'm sitting there panicked, totally panicked. So then it was time to do the dance audition. I couldn't walk. I was so, and they, of course, put me in the first group. And so I just I was just like, walk, walk, dip, walk, walk, dip. I was going in the wrong direction. They were on the floor laughing because it was, I wasn't even trying to do that. I was really actually trying to do it right. But it was Mary Louise, to be so
right,
wrong.
no, this way, Louise.
So clumsy and wrong was just like, and it was very genuine on my part because I had no idea what I was doing. And so then at the end of that, they lined everybody up again that had stayed. It was a big, long line of people. And then they went over into the corner, like the choreographer and Arthur Laurents. And I think it was Julie Stein, if my memory's right. And they're all in the corner. Arthur kept turning around and pointing at me and laughing. And I'm like, oh, shit, I'm such a fool. I got to get out of here. Oh, my God. And then Robert Tucker, the meanie, he walked right up to me and got right in my face and points his finger in my face and dancer, like that. And I was so terrified. I jumped like 5 feet in the air. I was like, like that. And so then they thought that was hilarious. So Arthur Laurents and they all peel into laughter again. And so then Arthur comes up and he goes, how would you like to come back for a callback? I was like, I was like, yes, of course. I was so thrilled. And that was the days where there were no cell phones. So I had to run down to the street and get a payphone and call my parents.
It's really sweet.
And then I got to come to the callback. And the callback, they called the same girl first. I was like a bunch of people. They called that same girl they had before, who was another Louise possibility. They called her first to sing and then read the big scene with Mama at the end. And I knew that scene. I was just like, if I could just get to that scene, I could nail this thing. Because the acting I wasn't concerned about, so I was like, oh man, I could do that. If I could just get to where I could do this scene, and so I get up there and they go, okay, do you have a different song to sing? And I was like, no, I still don't have my music. And no. And they were like, well, we really wanted you to sing a different song. And I was like, well, I know the music from the show. And they went, what? And I went, well, yeah, I almost did the show. Where? Oh, at Casa Manana in Fort Worth. Well, that was hilarious. Casa Manana. So they thought that was hilarious. And then they were like, well, if you could sing, why didn't you do that initially? And I said, because my friends told me never sing the song from the show you're auditioning for. They said, don't do that. And so they said, well, can you sing with Mama's Married? And I went, yeah, no problem. So I belted out of Mama Was Married. And they're like, okay, we want you to read the scene at the end. And I'm like, so I finished doing the scene, which I knew I'd scored with, and they're all just like looking at me. And Arthur goes, are you a member of Equity? And I thought, oh, fuck, now I'm not going to get it. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm cursing.
No, we love it.
Free and easy.
Okay. I cuss a lot.
Great, us too.
Yeah, you can do it.
Good. Good, I'm glad. So I was like, I thought, I'm not going to get it because I'm not in, So I just kind of went, no. And he leaned forward and smiled at me and he said, well, you're going to have to join. And I screamed. It was like The Voice or something, and those is like way before all those shows. I felt like I just won The Voice. I was just like,
it's incredible.
I couldn't believe it. It was a year job. And we went on the road for like 6 months, and then we came to Broadway, and Zan Charisse made sure I never went on even once. Every other understudy went on. But it was great because the woman who understudied Angie do you know who Mary Louise Wilson is?
Of course.
One of the greatest actors of our generation.
Well, she was my Angie, and we rehearsed every week. So every week I got to rehearse the show as Louise with her as Mama Rose.
Incredible.
Wait, that's incredible.
So I understudied for 11 months and I never went on once. Because, when Mary Louise had done her contract. She had gotten it in her contract that she would get to perform a couple of shows in Los Angeles. So she went on. Everybody went on. I was the only one that didn't.
So you never got to perform the role of Louise. Does that mean that you were watching, like, from the wings? Did you get to watch Angela's
And
mom?
I did it. I think that was what was wrong. I did it too much. The first thing we did was go to Toronto for a month. And I was so panic-stricken that I'd have to go on and I wouldn't know the role. And she had real hard changes. She had to do very fast changes at the end. And so I'm like all the time, like off the side, kind of like trying to memorize the lines and trying to memorize the blocking and the dance and the da-da-da-da-da. And then she complained while we were in Toronto. She complained about me watching.
Okay.
Miss
This is
Therese,
Roseanne.
not Angie.
I mean, I wanted to go to her, but I was too intimidated. And I was so scared of Angela the whole time because I respected her so much. And I was so intimidated. She was so kind to everyone. And I would just be like, I mean, I was just, couldn't talk to her. And that's when you asked me what I learned. I watched this woman who was, by this point, I think in her 60s. I watched her do, we did 6 months of a tour, and then we did, 3 or 4 months in New York. And it didn't matter if she was doing a matinee in Oklahoma City for just the week we were there or whatever. I never saw her not give 100% to every show she did. And I mean that emotionally. I mean, she would rip herself up to do that Mama Rose thing for every single audience. She was always at her max, constantly. She was so professional. And I already, of course, admired her work so much. And I'd gone to this very serious acting program at SMU. And so I was very snotty about method work and all that stuff. And I was blown away by her and her professionalism and how she cared about every performance. And, there were other people, who you could stand backstage and go, because you knew exactly how they were going to say the line because they said it exactly the same every performance. But she was never the same because she was always in the moment. She was such an inspiration. So, that really taught me a lot.
There's some great B-roll footage. I don't know if you've seen it.
Yes,
from
I
that
have.
production.
Somebody sent it to me.
It's beautiful. It's an
She's
incredible
dynamite.
cast recording.
But if you go online, you can see Patti LuPone's Mama Rose, a big number at the end, and you can see Bernadette Peters, and you can see Angie's, and you can see Tyne Daly's, and you can watch all of those, and I have, and I got to say, I loved Angie, but Angie was criticized a little bit for being a little too Tiffany's, for this woman who's really a street fighter. When I saw Patti LuPone's Mama Rose online, because I didn't see the production, I was living in LA then, I was blown away.
Yeah.
I mean, she almost tucked it. She was so acting it. And as we say, so in the moment and so emotional. And I mean, she possessed that song in a way I'd never seen anybody do. And it's really not about the singing. It was all about the acting. And she blew me away. Have you seen her do it?
Oh, yeah. I saw the show 5 times.
Oh, you did? Did you see Patty's 5 times?
Yeah. I saw Patty's 5 times. I saw Bernadette's 5 times. We are Rose's turn
did?
enthusiasts
Oh
on this
God.
show. Like, Gypsy is very important to us. So when we found out that you were in that production, it was just really important.
I was so lucky.
Our audience knows you for portraying Jill Taylor for 8 seasons on the Tim Allen-led sitcom Home Improvement. And the story goes that you replaced Frances Fisher in the pilot and that it took some sweet talking from producers to convince you to even join the cast. Why was it such a tough sell at the time?
I would substitute lying from the producers to get me to join the cast. Frankly, I would just say, yeah, they lied to me. But whatever, I would never have auditioned for it. The ABC hired me and put me in another show. And I had a baby in January, early January. Actually had twins in early January. And it came to be about March, and I wasn't supposed to start this other thing called Home Movies, which was not a sitcom. I didn't want to do a sitcom again. It was a dramedy about a couple with a young baby. So then one day they call me and they say, we're canceling Home Movies. I was like, what? Because they had me on a holding thing. And they said, we're canceling it, but if you will go in tomorrow and start on this other show that's a sitcom with a stand-up, then, just work on that for 4 or 5 days. You'll go in Thursday, work Thursday, Friday, maybe Saturday, cameras Monday, and shoot Tuesday. And I hadn't worked in a year. And I was like, yeah, okay. But I didn't want to do a sitcom. I didn't want to do a mom. So I was like, I don't think so. And so my agents and all of them were just like, go talk to them. Just go talk to them. So, and they told me that these guys had created Roseanne. And that's what did it for me, because Roseanne was my favorite show. I adored it. I loved her. Same. And I thought I always used to say, she changed everything for sitcom wives. I mean, I really think everybody that came after her is indebted to her for making it so that sitcom wives didn't have to be perfect looking and wear little dresses while they clean the house. Yeah. You know, and so I went, oh, they did Roseanne. And then my husband and I did the 1-page test, which we always did because both of us had done a lot of pilots and a lot of series work. You can open a pilot on any page and you can see pretty much on any page whether they're writing character and story or whether they're just writing jokes. Mm-hmm. You know, and we opened it up and it was like, oh, this is story. They're developing story. This is character of the story. They're not just telling jokes here. This is a story. The pilot was really good. I don't know if you remember the pilot, but it was really well written. So when I went in there, they told me all this crap about, and I was like, you know, I don't really want to play a mom parts, and they're thankless parts. I don't really want to do that. And they're like, oh, no, it's not going to be. We're not calling it the Tim Allen Show because we don't want to be the Tim Allen Show. This show has to be about both people. It's just as much about this book you don't understand as it is about Iron John. And you'll have family, you'll have friends, you'll have, it's going to be, it's not what you think. And the pilot, the part was great in the pilot. And at this point, I thought it wouldn't go anyway. I really didn't. They'd already had that show, Lenny. I don't know if you remember. It was a show with a stand-up. And I know Lee Garlington was the wife, and they had really good people, and it bombed. And I went, it's already bombed. They've already tried this, and it bombs. And they sent me the Showtime show of Tim's. And so my husband and I watched that. Because we didn't know who he was, but he had won an ACE award for this Showtime special that he did. So we were watching that. And I'm like, because it's all men and tools and all that stuff. And I'm like, I guess he's pretty, my husband, he was on the floor laughing. I mean, I'm like, I guess it's a guy show. I guess he's a guy person. Yeah. I mean, I thought he was funny, but it just wasn't, it's a guy thing. So I thought, he's pretty good. And we both really liked the script. So I said, okay, I'll take a meeting. So I go in, that was like a Wednesday. I go in that afternoon. I meet the 3 executive producers who lied to me. And then, I'm like, oh, well, what the hell? It's not going to go anyway. And they were offering me another pilot fee on top of the holding fee I had already. But here was the good part. This was March. They said, if it doesn't get picked up, we'll let you out of your contract in June. And otherwise, I would have been held until December. So I was like, okay, so more money, and I'm out sooner. And I'm sure this won't go. And then I'll be free, and then I can just be home with the babies, which is all I really wanted to do. Yeah. So I took it, thinking, it was not. And I had a blast. And the first day I went to go rehearse, the poor little the kids on the show were just terrified because anytime anybody gets fired, everybody thinks their job is at risk. Yeah. And so it was so tense. And I'm just happy to be working again because I've been off a year, and I'm like, yay. And I thought, the minute I worked with Tim, I thought he was hilarious. And so we did this reading. John Pasquin, gratefully, didn't allow the executive producers to watch our first read-through where we just sat on the stage and read it amongst ourselves because I guess he just didn't want that tension added. Of course, I'm sure they were sneaky somewhere and watching it anyway. But it was nice because it was just us on the stage working through it the first time. And every time, Tim just made me laugh. He just made me laugh. He was hilarious. And Tim, meanwhile, was looking at me and he's like, oh, she's funny. But I also was like really overweight from having had the babies. And he had been with Frances Fisher, who was beautiful, and with Clint Eastwood. And now he's gone to like lactating, huge mother. I could have picked him up and thrown him across the room. It was ridiculous. There was one scene in the pilot I remember where we were supposed to be wrestling on the couch. I looked at John. I was like, John, I could pick him up and throw him over the couch. And we have to pretend that he's like getting me. Anyway, that was...
Right. Well, you mentioned, in interviews that there were really no women in the writer's room and that you started at a certain point bringing...
No, that's wrong. There were women in the writer's room who were given no power. None of them were executive producer. None of them were in the room every Monday when Tim and I would have to go in and tell them what we thought about the script. So there was all men and me.
Yeah.
And then after one or two of those, they brought in the woman who was an executive producer with Wind Dancer, who had wasn't creative. She was the business person, but they just wanted to have a woman in the room. So they brought in Gail Matheo, and I'm like, why is Gail here? Gail, so she's like finance. We had Rosalind, who I thought was a great writer. And what happened was eventually they gave me 4 shows a year. Like after the first 2 years, I was like, what happened to you were going to write for me?
That was in writing. Four episodes were Jill episodes a year.
After the second year, for the other 6 years of the show, there were at least 4 Jill-driven episodes a year. So that I would have something to do besides insult Tim. The first 2 years of the show, I couldn't be in a scene alone with another character unless Tim came into it. So like if I'm with the kids, Tim had to be in the scene. If I'm with even my girlfriend, Tim had to come in the scene. I obviously never had any scenes alone with Wilson at that point or Rick. If Rick was in the scene, he'd have to come. Didn't matter. And so I'm like, I finally started saying to like Carmen Finestra, I'm like, you told me all this stuff about how you were going to develop a role and I was going to have a job and friends and and you won't let me be alone with the... this one particular episode, Zach was going to be dancing for the first time. He was going to a dance.
I remember that episode.
Well, not only did they have Tim having the big scene with him before about how to act with a girl, but when it came time for him to practice dancing, they had Tim dancing with him. And I'm like, that was it. For me, that was like the last straw. I was like, I'm crying by this point now because I'm like, what? Why did you tell me that you were going to develop this role and then I can't even dance with my son? In this episode, you've got him dancing with Tim. When are you going to write this role? And the only thing that worked, it was crying. I swear to God, because these people are men, and I didn't do it as a manipulation. I was genuinely upset, but I think that's the only reason they changed it, and they did, and I got to dance with him.
Did Tim go to bat for you in that space? Like, did you feel like he had your back?
We sort of did with each other, but no, not in that sense of. No, I don't remember Tim ever saying, well, as it went along, at first I was just too intimidated to ever say anything because I was so used to being a powerless actor. Yeah. And I couldn't imagine telling people who were writers and executive producers anything. Even though I'd done 13 years of new plays in New York, and this like doing a new play every week, I just didn't realize what I didn't know a lot. I just didn't trust it or trust myself. So it took me a while to get the nerve to start saying to them, but guys, I don't know any woman that would react this way. I wouldn't react this way. None of the women I know would react. And then they would say, oh, well, that's just you and your good marriage. Little do they know. And, and so then I started going, okay. So I started calling my sisters who are like normal people and live all around the country. So I would call Ann, Lynn, Kathy. I go, okay, if your husband was looking at other women, would you be more threatened by somebody he was actually working with all the time? Do you get threatened if you see somebody attractive on the street? I don't. In fact, I used to point it out to my husband. I'd be like, well, there's a babe, because I wasn't threatened, but if he'd been working with Debbie Dunning every day, I might be threatened about Debbie Dunning if he's seeing her every day. But, that's a whole different thing. Well, they didn't believe me. They were like, no, that's not. And I had to argue with them, and that was tough. But I finally kind of got the thing. And they actually said to me at one point, and I've said this in TV Guide, and they were really mad. Like Bruce was mad about it. They actually said to me, well, it's not like we don't know women. We're married to them. And I was like, you mean you think you know women better than I do because you're married to them?
Oh, my God.
Think, are you? Yikes. Yeah. And so I gave the quote to TV Guide, and they freaked. And then Bruce went, how could you say that? I went, it was true. That's what you did. Oh, no, we were joking. I went, right. Right. But I can't complain too much. What was tough in the beginning was how mean they were to Tim. They were so mean to Tim. And Tim was brilliant. And Tim had never acted before. And he was so good. Tim listened. You're in New York for years doing theater and people aren't even looking at you. Yeah. Like when Patti LuPone did Evita, I know the guy that was the stage manager, and he said that everybody in the show had a bet on how long it would be before Patti actually looked another actor in the eye. And it was 2 or 3 months.
Okay,
2 or 3
thank
months.
you so much for that. Wow.
I shouldn't be telling that, but I don't know her. And,
that's good. That is good detail.
This was a big story that one of our directors told us. He was like, it was unbelievable. But I don't think she's like that now. Her work is so in the moment. I can't believe that she's still like that. I don't know. Whatever. I really admire her. I mean, I really admire her work.
She contains multitudes.
Can I say, so in the height of this like home improvement fame that you're having, 1994, you end up co-hosting the Emmys with Ellen DeGeneres.
The worst experience of my life.
You've said on the record that it was the worst day of your life. Can you I don't know, just give us a
Okay,
little...
one thing I learned is never say that in the press before you do it. Because if you say that in the press before you do it, the press, when they review it later, will go, yeah, she was really uncomfortable and you could tell. So of course they're feeding them what they're going to be able to say. Yeah, she sucked. She was really uncomfortable and she sucked. It was like, if I hadn't said that... But, oh gosh, I shouldn't do this. I could tell you an Ellen story. Because Ellen co-hosted with me.
Yeah.
And I didn't know who she was. It was before her series. It was before any of it.
Oh, okay.
I had no idea. And they had come to me and asked me to do it first. And I had already turned down the American Comedy Awards. I'd already turned down hosting a bunch of awards because I am not that person. And I'm terrified in front of groups of people. And, I just never wanted to do that. I'm like, guys, I'm not a stand-up comic. I can't go host a show with stand-up comics. I'm not funny. I'm like the straight person here. So I was like, well, my agent at the time was like, okay, we'll let you out of that. But if they ever ask you to host the Emmys, you have to do that. And I was like, oh, yeah, right. Yeah, sure. Okay, I'll do that. We're like, that will ever happen. And then, a year goes by and they ask me. And so I'm like, oh, shit, Jonathan's going to make me do this. And of course he did. And everybody's like, you have to do it. You have to do it. You have to get away from being the supporting person for Tim. It'll be great for you and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, and somehow I got stuck doing it. And the next thing I know, they want the co-host to be this Ellen DeGeneres person who's, I guess, another stand-up. And I didn't really know anything about her. So this guy, the guy who used to produce Gilbert, what was his name? He produced all those shows. He's like, okay, well, let me get together. And you have any ideas about how to do this? And I said, well, the only idea I have is I've always thought it was really weird the way they change clothes. Like hosts always change clothes in the middle of the show. I'm like, why? I think that's so weird. So why don't we make a joke about that? And we'll come out wearing something normal in the beginning. And then every time we come out, it's something more and more weird and outrageous to the point where we're like Carmen Miranda wearing bananas on our head by the end. It just gets more and more ridiculous what we're wearing. And he thought that was actually a pretty good idea. Then he calls me back and he goes, okay, here's Ellen, what Ellen wants to do. And she's going to call you and tell you about this. I'm like, oh, okay. So she calls and says, oh, well, okay, I've got this whole thing worked out. I want to start the show where you just come out by yourself because I'm going to be out in my bathrobe and rollers talking to all the people in the line. And I'm going to be doing that and just smoozing with people. And then you're going to start the show and then you're going to come out by yourself and you're going to be like, where is she? Where is she? Why isn't her? Well, hello, can you do the Emmys? And, it would all be about her, right? So where is she and when is she coming? And you'll be wearing this dress that I already picked out. It's a great dress. Now, mind you, I'd had 15 pounds worth of twins like a year before and no time to work out. So I'm still like, I don't have a waist. There's lots I can't wear. I can't just wear anything. I'm huge. So she's saying, sorry, we got this dress and I got this dress. So you'll wear that dress. And then you come out and you wear the dress. And then I come in late and I'm wearing the same dress. And I'm like, yeah. Yeah, so then you are horrified. So you go backstage and you put on this great tux I found. It's great tux. You'll love it. It's a great tux. So then you put that on. And then you come out again thinking, oh, now see, I'm going to be different. I'm going to be different. And I come out wearing the same tux. And I was like, no, we can't do that. And she's like, why? I said, you don't understand. I'm like got baby weight. I can't just wear any dress. And I've already promised my customer that she can design something for me. And I can't just be, and I said, but the worst thing about this, Ellen, is you're creating a situation in which two women are hosting this together, which is a kind of an awesome thing, but we're competing with each other. I don't want that. So I don't want that dynamic, Yeah. And I also don't want to be supporting you. I'm doing this to get out of being the supporting person, Totally. And you're actually putting me in this role of being your supporting person, which is not why I'm doing this. But really, I think it's really awful to make this whole thing like, oh, women are, we're competing over clothes. Who gives a shit? So I just said no. And then Don Mishner, he was like, we're just not going to do either idea. He said, the problem with your idea is that if somebody tunes into the show later, they won't know what's going on. You know, you're going to be wearing these weird outfits and they won't understand that there's been a progression. I went, that's a good point. Okay, whatever. So we didn't do that. And I just said to Dawn, I think, Dawn, I don't care. Don't give me anything funny. I don't care about trying to make jokes. Just give me all the straight stuff. And I'll just do that and get through it. I just need to get through it. So we did. And they made up all these stories about how we had 1 million people backstage helping us. You know, that was a lie. And I had to take a downer. Like I took one, I can't remember, like a light Klonopin because I was having panic attack. And so I get there and do that. And then I'm waiting to go in backstage at one point. And I'd met Jerry Seinfeld once at a party or something, just very briefly. And so he was standing waiting to go on. And I'm like backstage just going, this is the worst thing that's ever happened to me in my life. I'm bombing. I'm so bad. Oh my God, this is the worst. You know, so I'm standing there just thinking, please have this be over soon. And he comes in and he goes, this is the smartest thing you've ever done. You know what he's like. I thought he was being sarcastic because I was having the worst experience of my life. And he said, the smartest thing I'd ever done. And I was thinking, it's the dumbest thing I've ever done. And I thought he was being sarcastic to me. So I didn't know how to react. It just took me until later to realize he was actually trying to say something nice to me. Yeah. He had no idea that I thought it was the worst thing that ever happened to me. Anyway, so fortunately we lived through the night.
Good.
And
good.
Ellen was, you know, I wasn't her favorite person when I wouldn't do it her way. But later, you know, she went through all that stuff with the show. So the next time I saw her at the Emmys, we were actually put at a table together. And that was when she was with, I can't remember if that was just when she was with Anne Hesh or later.
Alexandra Hedison?
Yeah, she might have still been with Anne at that point, but I remember she was with somebody, I don't remember who. And they're across the table, and she wasn't even talking to me, but I just really made a point of trying to be friendly and nice and just said, I'm so happy that your show has turned out to be such a success. I love it. It's really great. Congratulations. And then they were both like, like they were surprised I was nice. But you know, whatever. I mean, I loved her show, and I loved her talk show, and now I'm watching Finding Nemo and Finding Dory all the time on television with my grandson, and she's.
I can't wait for you to tell your grandson that story about Ellen.
Oh no, I won't. Well, I have to tell you, at the time I was calling her Ellen DeGeneres.
Hey,
that's a good one.
But, you know, later I just felt really bad about it. And I just thought, well, okay, so, you know, she had a way. She was nervous, too, about the first time. And she wanted to do a certain way because she was really nervous. And we just kind of, you know, missed each other. Yeah. But, you know, I had no reason not to like her other than that.
I think it's generous of you. It's a terrible business, and it breeds a lot of competition in ways that are not healthy. So, like, good for you to be able to, like, water under the bridge. Okay, Patricia Richardson, we have entered the part of the show that we are calling the rapid fire. We are going to get you out of here on time. It's going to be rapid for us and rapid for you. Okay, so.
Oh, no, I have to think?
Let it fly. Whatever you got, give it to us.
Okay, I'm trying.
So when we were doing our research, we started to realize that you have a fair amount of what we are calling gay cred. Of course, you have the 2019 indie comedy Cubby, written, starring, and co-directed by Mark Blaine about a gay 20-something. You play his supportive mom when he moves to New York City. There's your theatrical roots. But also, did you know that a gay writer at Decider wrote a whole piece about you, about how you were the best sitcom mom of all time?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I remember doing an interview.
We're sending it to you, but also you have an in real life gay comedian son, Joe Castlebaker, who's currently on Search Party. So do you understand that queer people have a lot of love for you, and is that something that resonates?
No, I just wasn't aware if many people even knew that Joe was my son.
I just learned when we were doing research for this, and we love his work, and so we were so pleased.
He's so good. People have no idea.
Gay people love you, and it's, I don't know, it's like Home Improvement was not necessarily like a queer-friendly show, but maybe it was the Jonathan Taylor Thomas that everyone loved him so much, and he has a huge gay fan base. But there is gay love for you, and we just want you to know it.
That's so nice. That's really nice, because I fight for them.
We appreciate
it.
Because
I fight for my son, so I try to make life easier. And I have to tell you, I have people in my family who are Christian evangelicals. To them, Joe is a sinner. And my sister's like, but we love Joe. And I'm like, no.
You can't hold both of those things. I don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
It's exhausting. It's hard when it's family. I hear you.
These were things that I really believe, because I'm very political, that change doesn't happen from people reading Twitter or reading things or anything. What happens is when they identify with a story. They know people and they know their story, or they identify with the story that they're following. And I think shows like Glee change people's minds. I think the more you see that in the culture and you understand, this is a person. Look, I love that guy. These are people. I know this now. Oh, I see. I mean, a lot of people just aren't exposed. Right. And they aren't emotionally connected to someone who might be gay or a family that has a gay person. So I really feel that what changes people is really television and film and,
totally.
You
starred on 9 episodes of The West Wing as Sheila Brooks, campaign manager for Alan Alda's character Arnold Vinnick, who is a Republican presidential candidate. You've also said that after Home Improvement, you turned down an offer for a drama series that won like 100 Emmys. Can you confirm that show was indeed The West Wing? And then
I won't say that. I won't say what show it was, because I hate when I read that other people have said, I was offered that part first, and then the person who got the part is like,
okay.
That's fair.
I respect
That's fair.
it. You're a professional.
I'm just throwing the name CJ Craig out into the ether. I'm just saying CJ Craig. I'm just saying it. You're not saying it. I'm saying it.
I'm not saying that.
Okay.
But I will tell you that it was right after Home Improvement, and I was so burned out. I was so tired.
You needed a break.
Burned out. And I hadn't seen my kids. I felt like I hadn't seen them in 5 years. And so I was determined not to ever take a show that went 7 years again.
Yeah.
I was just wanted to do movies or something. I just was like, I need to be with my children. I haven't seen them.
Yeah.
So that happened like right away. And it was a drama. And I know what dramas are like. And that's like even worse hours than a sitcom.
Yeah.
And far away again, because we lived on the West Side. And I was like, God, I thought I didn't see my kids. Now I would never see them. No, I cannot do that. And even though at that point it was just the pilot, they were saying, well, we don't know if we're going to use this person later, so it's just a pilot at this point. But I was like, no, because this is going to be an important part. And it would be great, but I can't leave my kids that much again.
Yeah. Well, you've got well-adjusted kids, it seems, so well done. Okay.
I mean, it's a miracle.
You did it. You did it. You did it.
Well-adjusted. I mean, they have 2 crazy parents. So it's like, oh my God, how did they survive that? Anyway.
Okay, Patricia, you are in the upcoming film Chantilly Bridge, directed by Linda Yellen, opposite Talia Shire, Ali Sheedy, and former guest of this show, Jo Beth Williams, among many other women.
Oh, good.
So the film is a sequel to the 93 film Chantilly Lace, which is notable for being an all-female cast with the complete absence of any man except a pizza delivery person who remains faceless. What can you tease about this new movie? We're obsessed with it, and since you weren't in the first film, who are you playing?
I played Jo Beth's sister. And, in the first one, she dies. Yeah. But this movie, she narrates. And there's a lot of flashbacks to the other movie. And you see, because it's Jill Eikenberry, Lindsay Krause, and Talia, and Helen Slater, who's brilliant in the film.
Brilliant, yes.
Really brilliant.
Love.
I mean, she's great. And she has this whole great plot line that I really related to. When I saw the film, I was like, I relate to her a lot. Because she's got this whole thing going on with her daughter and the whole thing. And I stuff with my daughter. So I was like, this is the story I relate to. But because the film kind of it really does hit on all the issues that women our age have. It's, I think, also really wonderful that you see these women and then it flashes back to them 30 years ago.
It's very cool.
And these women are so great. And it's all improv, right? I mean, not all. Linda would give us like here,
like an outline.
I want you to get this one line, or this is what's kind of supposed to happen in this scene. And then we would just make up stories and just.
I'm so excited.
We're so excited. We're so excited.
Great cast.
It was so fun. And now we're going to do it at South by Southwest.
Okay,
so
we are on board. We're ready. This is our kind of movie.
I'm so excited. I really hope that it's streaming somewhere, because there's nothing to watch for people our age except Grace and Frankie, which is now run 7 years. There's nothing that's like Kaminsky Method, old people.
Sure.
There's very few shows that are really kind of about our problems as older people and our generation grown up. So I just, as an audience person, want to see a film like this out there for women to watch.
Amen.
Okay, you've said that Robert Tucker, on the record, you've said he was a mean choreographer. This is just a quick question. I want to know, did you know his kid's name?
Just to me, because I lied, and he was totally justified in being mad about that. I lied. I never lie.
Did you know his kids' names are Zan, Nan, and Ian? You worked with Zan.
I worked with Zan, who quit the business pretty soon after that. But her sister Nan actually did pretty well. She was
Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
One of the Star Trek things. Yeah. After we did Gypsy, we closed it in January. Did it like here. That summer, they did it in the Westport thing, that kind of round thing. And Angie actually did it, but Zan didn't want to do it. So they used Nan. They didn't ask me to do it. They use nurseries.
Oh,
All right.
Okay.
Well,
I mean,
Robert
I
Tucker
like
had his
I like
claws in
Nana
all of
Visitor,
it.
but I don't know about the names. Okay.
I never seen her work. I have no idea.
I saw her as
what
Roxy
she's
on
like.
Broadway, so that's all I got.
She got to play Roxy on Broadway. That's
After
awesome.
Star Trek, yeah, that's what I saw her.
Oh, that's great.
Okay, Patricia Richardson, last question.
Okay.
You were surrounded by twin girl hijinks in the 1984 sitcom Double Trouble, and your wedding to Barry Bostwick was spoiled by his triplets in 1989's Parent Trap 3. You have starred opposite each Maori twin,
I know.
Tia in A Very Vintage Christmas and Tamara in Strong Medicine.
I know.
And, of course, you gave birth to your own set of twins at the start of Home Improvement. So we have to ask you, which is inherently more menacing, twins or triplets?
Oh, well, I haven't had triplets, so I cannot say. But going from one child to two children is like going from 1 to 50. I swear it was such a shock. It's really hard.
Well,
And,
triplets must be worse, frankly.
I can't believe, I mean, maybe by that point now you just give up.
Yeah, did you ask the Creel sisters? Were you like, wow, there's three of you?
You know, when we were doing, because Ray was also in it. You know, my husband was in it too.
You guys have like
yeah.
your last scene in the movie
You
together.
know, we weren't thinking at the time that we were going to have twins or anything like that. We were just like, wow, you all look so alike. And, you know, we were blown away.
Parent Trap 3 did it to you. Parent Trap 3 made that happen.
Well, we were in love with Haley Mills.
She's incredible.
I worshipped her as a child.
Yeah.
You know, Pollyanna, everything.
Oh, I love
everything
Pollyanna.
she did. Oh my God, everything she did. And then she turned out to be the nicest person you would ever want to meet.
That's great news.
And you know, Ray played opposite her, and then I was supposed to be like dancing with, but she was so kind and really a person. You know what I mean? Like genuine.
Yeah, I love to hear that.
She was great.
Patricia Richardson, this has been a total ride. So fun. Thanks so much for joining us on the show.
I really did some horrible dishing on this thing, didn't I? It's the first. I've done a lot of interviews. I cannot believe that I've been such a big blabber on this one.
I have to say, it was such a thrill to be able to talk about the Parent Trap 3, which I feel like has been a literal joke between Anne and I for 10 years about the Creel sisters playing triplets. It was like such a shock to me when I found out that Tori from Saved by the Bell was a triplet and that her sisters and she acted together in movies with Haley Mills that were sequels to the Parent Trap. And... you know, this is just a little bit of an Easter egg here, is that we do have an interview coming up in the future that also involves Haley Mills talk, so I'm always here for it.
She's very important to us. I can't get over her being like, have you seen Patti LuPone's clip of her doing Rose's turn? Have you seen Bernadette Peters? And I was like, look, you are really getting beneath the surface here. We could have an hour on this. And look, we didn't cut any of the Gypsy talk because it was incredibly important to us. I feel like we got real behind the scenes stuff there. And the fact that revealed itself later about Patti LuPone not making eye contact with any of the actors in Evita was just like the icing on the cake.
And then, and then Patricia was like, well, no, I'm sure it's not the same anymore. We were like, got it.
It might be.
Yeah, we did. Well, I thought it was interesting. We did not mention Betty Buckley, which is unlike us. You know, we
were about to, but we didn't want to railroad the conversation because you and I had, of course, had just been to the Paper Mill Playhouse, which you called the house Betty Buckley built. We were like, this is going to take it to a different place, and we didn't want to change the conversation too much since she did not perform the role on Broadway.
Folks, I will say, if you're interested in getting involved in clipping with us, that watching the Rose's turns of all the aforementioned women in this episode is a real great night. You can add in Betty Buckley's if you'd like as well. My personal preference, and I think this might be controversial, my personal preference is Tyne Daly's, but I didn't see it live on stage, and I know that that's different, obviously, but that is my personal favorite. How about you? Has your opinion changed?
I think it has, in that, like, the first production I ever saw was the Bernadette version, and I loved it so much, and then she was so maligned. It was interesting to me hearing that people thought that, I love that phrase that Patricia used, that Angie was too Tiffany's, which I thought, I'd never heard that before, that she was like too high toned to be Rose, who's a little bit of a bulldozer. I thought Bernadette was excellent. When I saw Patty do it, I was like, she's more in this sort of frame, physical, as like Merman, in terms of being like a small, strong-willed kind of like person who's got like broad shoulders. The Tyne Daly clip to me is amazing. And I felt bad for Tyne because she was forced to record the cast album when she was sick, and she was like, she won't sign it. She won't autograph that cast recording because
I forgot about that.
It's not representative of her work. work because she said, she was like, I don't think this is an appropriate time for me to record, and they made her do it anyway. I think her acting is so exquisite. And I never really understood why people said that Angela was so good. And then when I found that B-roll footage, it's in the show notes, please go watch it. I thought, I understand. Like, I think now what has changed for me, sorry, you asked me the question, now you're getting a whole can of worms.
No, that's what I wanted.
Is that I think the role is so good. The role and the show is so good that it can support any good actor's interpretation. So as long as the person is a great actor, I am ready to visit any person's performance that can act the role, whether or not they can sing it. Like, to me, each one of those performances is equally valid. I think I have certain preferences for like a more bulldozery type, and I think Tyne Daly satisfies both of those things. But of course, somebody taking the note up at the end of Everything's Coming Up Roses like Patty does is also incredibly thrilling to witness that in person, because there's nothing like that. But for me, all of them are incredible, and that's why Gypsy's my favorite show of all time. I think it can support any interpretation.
I think it's the Macbeth of musical theater for women, or the Hamlet, you know, whichever you fancy. But I feel like
the King Lear. It's like it requires a lot of you.
It's like Effie White, where it's like, if you are a person who is capable, and it's not to take away from anybody's talent, but it's just like, if you can do the thing, it's a great role.
Yes. I loved that we got to cover those bases with her, because I feel like ultimately I came to her oeuvre knowing that she was sort of like this famous sitcom mom from our childhood. So I feel like we really opened the doors to her career, and it was a thrill. That's what I love about the show.
Oh, baby, getting to talk about Zan and Nan Charisse. Zan and Nan Charisse, Nana Visitor, Nee Tucker, Nee Charisse. Come on, baby. I love Nana Visitor. I want her on the show. Zan will never get, she left the biz, and she was, I don't know, sounded like she was...
She was mean to Patricia. She sucked.
But my
Sorry,
gosh.
if Nana comes on this show, we will not mention it. If just for you listeners, we will not mention that. that she was mean to Patricia.
Folks, we hope that you liked this interview with Patricia Richardson, and we hope that, if so, that you'll leave us a little written review. I just want to jump in and say that, because we are doing this good thing. It's a thing that we love doing, and I don't really know how to explain it, but I know that a written review really helps us. So if you can do a little written review, you can just literally write Zan, Nan, and Ian. It's Ian, I'm saying. Nan, Zan, and Ian in the comments of the Apple Podcast app. We would so greatly appreciate it. It really helps us, boost the algorithm, stay in people's names, stay in people's mouths. I don't know, but just do it, please. It really does help us. And also dig into our archives, because we have over 100 episodes of this show with tons of evergreen interviews where we get to talk to wonderful women and non-binary folks who have done crazy things like understudied roles on Broadway in the beginning of their career. And we are talking about that shit here. Mm-hmm. Okay, so now you know what time of the show it is. It's when we connect this week's guest, Patricia Richardson, to next week's guest, a mystery. And we do it in a sort of 6 degrees of using only women and non-binary actors to get there. So, Anne, can you set up Patricia Richardson to next week's guest for our listeners?
Why, yes, I can. Thank you for asking. Patricia Richardson, this week's guest, is in Chantilly Bridge with former guest of this show, Jo Beth Williams, who was, of course, in The Big Chill with another former guest of this show, Mary Kay Place. Mary Kay Place, of course, starred in a small role on Lady Dynamite with Maria Bamford, who was in Lucky Numbers with Lisa Kudrow, also John Travolta, but we don't do men in this. Lisa Kudrow was in one of our favorite shows of all time, The Comeback with Malin Ackerman, who was in The Proposal with Sandy Bullock, who is starring in the new movie The Lost City with next week's guest.
Okay, I'm excited about that movie, and I have to say, I love Sandy Bullock, and I think she reminds me of Ruthie Henshaw, who we mentioned earlier in this show, and I think that they both are women you are attracted to.
I think that's right. So I never knew that I was attracted to Sandra Bullock, but of course I loved Demolition Man and Speed and Love Potion Number 9 as a young person. So it all makes sense now. Of course, it was just like I didn't have words for it. So yeah, I think she has some sort of like same nose situation as Ruthie Henshaw. You always try to put Kate Beckinsale in that same category. And I have to tell you, I know people think that she is like quote unquote hot. To me, she is deeply not. And she's not in the same category for me. I'm not attracted to Kate Beckinsale. But yeah, let's put Sandy Bullock in that category. I love her. Also, she has gay energy. Sandy Bullock, I don't think is a gay person, but lesbians love Sandra Bullock.
I love her too. I'm not a lesbian.
No, but you have enough cred. You're in like a Venn diagram. You know what I mean?
I appreciate it. Also, folks, we are excited about next week's guest, but I do need to clarify something, and I'm so sorry to say this, but I need to get it on the record because I know that if I was the one listening, I would be so mad. So I need you to understand something. I fucked up last week's connection. I said that Minnie Driver was in Conviction with Gina Gershon, who was in Showgirls, and that is not right. So I did part of the connection in my home, and then I took Ronnie, the intern, for a walk, and I thought of the rest of the connection while I was on the walk, and I wrote it in my phone. When I came back, I missed the missing element, which, of course, was fucking Hilary Swank. I'm so sorry. So the real connection to get us to Patricia Richardson through the Creel sisters was that Minnie Driver was in Conviction with Hilary Swank, who was in P.S. I Love You with Gina Gershon, who was in Showgirls, etc. So I'm so sorry. I really do pride myself on, being not very knowledgeable about something that nobody really cares about, but I know my listeners care about. I know that Anne cares about the shit I care about,
yes,
and you guys do. And I feel like I know what I know. And it's a limited, specific thing, but I know it. So I'm so sorry. Hilary Swank messed it up. I blame Hill.
We always do. Bless you for correcting the record. That's what we do. We will always be honest with you when we fuck up. So I love you for that. And also, anytime that you think that there's a correction, check the show notes because we usually put it in there. Baby cakes. If you like what we're putting down, if you like the transparency with which we approach this show, please follow us on social media where you can find much of the same. We are on all mediums at Damian Bellino and Rodeman. That's Rodemanne. You Might Know Her From is produced by us. The one, the two and only Damian Bellino and Ann Rodeman.
We want to thank our consultants at Grumpy Entertainment. That is Jason Jude Hill and Daniel Sears. And all of that silky smooth, silky nutmeg ganache editing is also by the wonderful, the incomparable, and the multi-talented Daniel Sears.
Special thanks to Gang. All the music that you hear on each and every episode of You Might Know Her From is courtesy of Gang. We love them so much. You can download and stream Gang wherever you listen to your music.
Folks, are you looking for information about the Creel sisters? Did you know that they starred in This Cell with Jennifer Lopez? Do you want to see the difference between all of the Rose's turns? Did you know that Betty Buckley wipes away the lights of the marquee? I do, because I've watched it 100 times. We're putting all of that info for you in the show notes, and I don't do it. I nary do it. Maybe once in a while I'll do a correction of something. I'll put something in italics. The code doesn't even hold it up, but I just do it because of my OCD. My best friend does this every week for you. Check out those show notes. It is a treasure trove of goodies for, as mentioned, our weird specific pop culture brains babies.
I can't tell you how into the Ellen DeGeneres talk that I was from this week's episode, because I got a text message from our friend Megan, who just is looking at dishware, I guess. And apparently Ellen DeGeneres has a dishware line. And I said, get her dirty paws out of everything. You know what I mean? Like, she doesn't need a dishware line. Here's the thing I think she's trying to do. She's trying to make her money in things that don't include, like, her visage. You know, she's like trying to make her money in places that don't include, like, her being on TV, which, look, a lot of people do, but doesn't she like flip 45 houses a year? Why does she need more money? Please just go retire.
It's to sustain the vegan diet, It's to buy all that vegan cheese,